Hi everyone. Today on Training Smarter with AeroPro Coaching, we're going to highlight the 2016 Masters National Road Race Champion Ken Vita. Let's start by taking a look at Ken's performance management chart, and this chart gives us a view of Ken's training through the different phases of training. Also some specific landmarks with reference to racing and team camps and sicknesses, and then the volume of training and in the training load. So the yellow here, when it's low like this or below, shows periods of high stress or high training volume. And then when we lower that volume or we de-stress the system, you'll see the yellow move above, meaning that the person's building freshness or recovering. And then the blue line is the chronic training load. And the chronic training load is basically the measure of time and intensity, and it's a cumulative effect over time. So as the blue line increases, fitness tends to increase with that. So it gives us a good cause and effect of training. So like as we prescribe training, we see the training stress being built up, and then the effects of that is the chronic training load or starts to improve. So as chronic training load improves, training stress volume or training stress balance starts to drop or show a negative effect or starts to accumulate. So as stress starts to accumulate in the body, then eventually we have to recover that. So you see here the yellow is in periods of high stress, and then this yellow indicates a period of recovery. Here he had a sickness or a surgery that he was recovering from. So just a kind of a brief overview. In 2016, at the end of 2016, Ken and I had sat down to discuss his plans for 2017, and he wanted to target Masters Nationals. So knowing that, we had set up a plan for him to peak during that period. So we're showing his build up from the beginning of, the end of 2016 to his current state here at the beginning of May. And we're with one goal in mind, and that's to peak for Masters Nationals. This is a different view, and what we see here is a performance management chart. So this is the dose, or what we're prescribing to Ken in the form of training, in the periods of training, in the phases of training as he moves through them, and then here's the response. And so this is a great look at, is the training working, and what changes do we need to make, or how should we proceed through the different phases of training. So most people just do a traditional base, and then they do the traditional workouts for building, and then but by following this method, we're able to really individualize the periods of base training and build training. So down below, these are power curves or power duration curves, and what they're showing us is his peak powers from 0 all the way to his longest ride. So if this is a sprint and all the way to his longest endurance rides, it's plotting all of his power data along this curve. And the gray in the background here, this gray is his historical values. Those are the values over the last 2 years of his power best. So these are different peaks along the curve for the last 2 years for Ken. And then we're overlaying that with his current peak power. So where does his current power profile leave him? And so you can see that the purple sits on top, and then the gray is in the background, and we get a clear view of the areas where he's falling short compared to his history. And so here's period 1, which is base, and then period 2, and then period 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to show you as he goes through this training how it's actually affecting his power profile chart. And so we start here. One of the key focuses was to build fatigue resistance, or his ability to sustain power for longer durations. A lot of times people are focused on increasing power, but here we're trying to extend the duration of his power. And this is an area where Ken was lacking at the end of 2016, and we decided that this is where we would really want to focus on his base training. So this is very individualized for Ken. And so on this right side of the curve, you'll notice that the purple is falling short of the gray, meaning that his peak powers currently are below his historical values. And as we move through the base training, you'll see the results of that base training with an improvement in his longer durations. So out here, in his 2, 3, 4 hour rides, he's starting to show signs of improved power compared to his past or his historical values. As we move into the next phase of training, which is the beginning of build, so we kind of fade into the build periods and start to add a little bit of intensity, and you'll start to notice that, again, the power duration curve, he's starting to show more purple, or we're starting to see his peak powers equal to or greater than his historical values. So we're starting to see that here in the extensive side with the longer durations, and we're also starting to see the mid-range intensity start to improve. So as we start to give him some pre-build and build intensity, we're starting to see him pop off some pretty good peak powers in the mid-range, which would be like in the 2 to 5 minute power durations. He has a team camp, so that's probably accounting for some of these peak powers. It got pretty spirited, and so I'm sure he put out some pretty good efforts during that team camp. And then we move into the race season. So he's in the middle of a build period, and he starts to race. And we see some early results. Second place in a Pro 1-2 crit. He takes first in a Pro 1-2 crit. So we're starting to see the results from the work that he's put in the base period. In build period 1 and 2, you're starting to see the curve flatten out and a lot more purple overlaying his historical values. So we know that the workouts are the prescription of workouts is working for him because we're getting the response in his power profile. So the direct correlation to see if a training program is working is, are you seeing a upward trend in your power compared to your historical values? In the past, taking a look at those numbers, are you equaling those numbers or improving over those numbers? And we're starting to see that here for Ken. And currently, Ken just finished racing Speed Week. He won 3 of the 4 races, and then he won Masters Regionals. So of the last 6 races, he's won 4 of those, and has been on the podium on all of them. So we're right near the peak for Ken. He has about 4 to 5 more weeks until the Masters Nationals. So we have one more build phase, which is the intensive build, and we're going to start to hammer the short durations. And this is going to really push this side of the curve up for Ken. We're going to see this improve and start to really, really get him peaked and for his charge to Masters Nationals. So, and the last, what we want to look at is a comparison of where he started the season to where he's at right now. And you can see a lot more purple overlaying the gray now than in the past. And we have one more little area to fill in, which is what we're going to do here in the last build phase. So this is a great kind of way to look at training in a dose response. You're seeing as we dose the intensities, as we build towards his peak race, you're seeing the responses of this power duration curve, and we're seeing that just kind of fill in. It's very motivational motivating for the athlete to see this. So it's something that we try to provide to them as we take them through the different phases. So you're out there doing, the base phase, and you're like, I'm just, knocking off these hard tempo or these type of workouts, and is it working? That's the question: is it working? And then we can come here and we can show, hey, yeah, you are seeing improvements on that side of the curve. So this is starting to work. And then the end game is like a lot of people can improve on these power profiles. Their power profiles look great, but they're not producing results. And so we're getting the best from both worlds with Ken. So we're seeing his power profile improve, and he's getting these results. And, we can see that he's really kind of on an upward trend and getting ready to really break out and peak for nationals. So the timing of this is really worked out, and it's a combination of the athlete, the feedback from the athlete, and the coach. I've coached Ken for a while, and our feedback system tends to work very well. He tells me when he's ready to train and when he needs some time off, and then I let him know when we need to kind of drive it a little harder. And so I think that's one of the big keys for Ken and I and his success.
Well, Dick, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence, and nobody can hang with my stuff. I'm just a big, hairy American winning machine. If you ain't first, you're last. You know what I'm talking about?
All joking aside, we hope this provides valuable insight into training and training smarter. We are AeroPro.